HRN listeners. As we celebrate our 15th year, we are deepening our commitment to giving voice to the next generation of food systems storytellers, and we need your help. Our internship and fellowship programs help activate new possibilities for underrepresented and underestimated young people through experiential journalism, audio engineering, and production training. Through these unique programs, HRN helps food equity stewards build essential workforce readiness skills that expand their potential and foster economic mobility. Please consider supporting these critical programs. And with a minimum donation, you can be entered to win a dinner for two at an amazing restaurant in one of 8 cities and tickets to a concert at a great venue in one of those cities. We have incredible partners across the country who have donated, as they also share our passion for helping to educate the next generation of food systems storytellers. Check out heritageradionetwork.org/15 to donate and enter to win today. That's heritageradionetwork.org/15 to donate and enter to win today. And make sure you donate before March 31st. Thank you.
Hearst Ranch is a proud sponsor of the Heritage Radio Network. Learn more about Hearst Ranch at HearstRanch.com.
You're listening to Heritage Radio Network. We're a member-supported food radio network broadcasting over 35 weekly shows live from Bushwick, Brooklyn. Join our hosts as they lead you through the world of craft brewing, behind the scenes of the restaurant industry, inside the battle over school food, and beyond. Find us at heritageradionetwork.org.
Welcome to the Grape Nation, your weekly wine journey. Our guests are Thomas Carter and Louis Fabbrini of Estela, Cafe Altro Paradiso, and Flora Bar, all in New York City. We'll talk to Thomas and Louis about their restaurants, some interesting wines, small plates, and a lot more. We'll taste the Vouvray from the Loire for our weekly wine sip. I'm your host, Sam Ben-Ruby. Stay with us for the Grape Nation on the Heritage Radio Network. We bring wine to the people. Thomas Carter is the proprietor of Estela, Cafe Altro Paradiso, and Flora Bar. Louis Fabbrini is the beverage director of Estela and Cafe Altro Paradiso, all in New York City. Together, they oversee the wine and food at some of New York City's hottest restaurants. Both come to the game with a strong restaurant background where wine is as interesting and as important as the food. Right? Welcome to the show, Louis and Thomas.
Thanks. Thank you.
Good to have you guys here. I want our listeners just to get a little sense of who's sitting in these chairs. So give me a little background about your journey in life, wine, restaurants that got you to where both of you guys are, which is, this group of restaurants. Thomas, start with you.
You sure you don't want Louis to start?
I think you should start.
Why? I want the least boring guy last.
I think you chose the wrong people.
Oh, boy.
Restaurants. I started in restaurants to put myself through art school, and then I bartended.
In Chicago?
In Chicago.
Right.
And then, like growing up in Chicago, I grew up with very, kind of basic Ashkenazi fare, and then peppered with some, there was I grew up on, the cusp of Evanston and Skokie. So you would have, some, fast food to us was like the Pita Inn, which is falafel. So that was the big food experience was falafel. It actually was pretty good falafel. It was amazing.
I'm sure.
So, the biggest food item that the most memorable food thing that I had growing up was olive oil. We had a next door, a really good family friend by the name of Victoria Ladowdy.
That was an exotic thing or something?
Well, for me it was. We didn't fucking have olive oil. I tried olive oil at his house when I was 7, and it blew my hair back. I still can taste it. So anyways, after art school, I went with a girlfriend to the south of France. And, and immediately as I start to eat, I'm I've never been interested in art at the same level as how quickly I became over inundated and totally, sucked in by food. And I just felt duped. I kind of, at the same time, began to be very upset with my parents for feeding us such shit. But, it's not their fault. They were in the Midwest. We were
Boiled
in
bag
Chicago.
green beans or something.
No, it was just like whatever. Like, stuffed peppers was like a big thing in her. Like, it was like that was the. But anyways, so I stopped. I didn't know I was going to do an art anyways. I was kind of a crap artist. I was doing photography and painting. And then went to culinary school at CA in Hudson Valley.
Up here in New York.
Yeah, and then I cooked for a while in the city. I cooked for like Union Pacific, and really loved cooking. I loved like this silence.
So you came out of there as a cook.
Yeah,
chef. Okay.
I'm not as good.
We'll tell people that's not where you wound up. So you finished CIA.
Finished CIA, cooked for a little bit, then went back to CIA to do this. I don't know why. I already had a bachelor's degree, so I went back for another degree in like business administration. And like the hook for me was like you did this immersion program out in Northern California. You spent a little time at UC Davis.
Isn't the wine program?
Yeah,
the wine immersion.
We were the first stream that actually did this wine thing. So I went out there, and then that kind of had my kind of like embodied my anthropological background, and which was minimal. I was my minor in college, but. Did that and cooked in the city for a while, and then decided that I don't think I would be as useful in the kitchen after I got into so many fights in the Union Pacific kitchen, which was a great restaurant, I thought.
What wasn't that
Rocco
di Spirito.
cooked there.
So wait, was it more skills or personality that got in the way?
For sure, personality.
Okay,
absolutely. I mean, not that I was that great in the kitchen, but I mean, it was definitely personality. But then I got really interested in wine. Then I came back and I tried to get a job. I kept bothering David Lynch at Babbo, and he asked me 3 questions. He asked me like, what are the 3 active volcanoes in
Italy?
And he's like, what is the river that traverses like Piedmont? And I didn't know anything. He's like, you can't fucking work here. So he put me at Otto, and I worked under Morgan Rich, and he schooled me for about 8 or 9 months until I can afford to work.
Otto is Mario Batali's pizza place in the Village.
This is like 2004.
Right.
Like, so right when they opened, it was actually epic. Like the wine list there was amazing.
Beautiful space.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Like I learned a lot. And Morgan
and
was
you got engaged more at that point.
Yeah, I just kind of got wine still is something that's endlessly fascinating, and I've never really I learn a lot from Louis now. Like I went from Otto, and then I couldn't afford to work there anymore, and I served for a quick stint at Gotham because I had to make some more money. And then I couldn't do I was a good server, but I just couldn't hold people's hands for that long. I couldn't sit there and fucking talk to them for so long. And then the night I walked out is when some lady put ice in a bottle of Montrachet DRC, and I was like, I can't watch this. So I left Gotham, and then I was kind of in the dumps because I left Gotham. I broke up with
What
this
year
girl.
are we at now?
This is like 2006.
Okay.
Whenever. This was right when Ducasse opened in the Essex House. So then I turned around and got a job at the Essex House as just a straight som, but I was a commis, and then it was like working back in the kitchen again because I had to eat shit again for a couple of years before I started to become like a full som, which is great because you go in, you think you know something when you really don't know anything. So
I would think their wine list was fairly.
It was super traditional, very extensive, very Burgundy-centric. Yeah. It was very deep in Loire, like Domaine Loire. They had everything though. I mean, they had, it's like, it was very deep. And like the cheap juice was Gentas. So it was like, so I cut my teeth on some good stuff. And like every night at the end of the night, there would always be like empty bottles of all this random stuff. It was like, DRC was like whatever. We were
empty or a little left?
No. Sorry, did I say empty? I meant like half-drinking bottles, or there was a couple of people who would come in and they just wanted the 85 Cristal Rosé, and they would leave a half a bottle for us, and Claire Dow, 60s, Bonmar, and like all these great old wines that I was really fortunate to cut my teeth on. So I'm coming out of these, then I went from there to Le Bernardin to Blue Hill at Stone Barns. But I've come out of,
When did you get to Blue Hill?
I started Blue Hill in 2008.
And it's significant because you stayed there.
For 6 years, yeah.
Right.
5.5, 6 years.
Right. I mean,
it was amazing.
A growing process for you too?
Yeah, I kicked my ass for a lot of years. Okay. On many levels. Like personally, very growing. Dan Barber is probably one of the smartest guys I've ever met and worked for. And he's a prick, but he's amazing.
Yeah.
He's an amazing person.
All right, so let's finish up because I want to hear from Louis. So you do the Blue Hill stint 6 years. You end when, and then that gets you to
2012. I met Ignacio through a guy that had this company called Paradiso.
Ignacio is Ignacio Matos.
Yep.
Who is your partner and chef.
Indeed.
At Estela.
Correct.
Which was your first restaurant.
Uh-huh.
Which was when?
2013, June.
All right, so we're going to stop there because I want to come back and talk
All
about,
right.
you know, the Ignacio and all that. Let's talk to Louis for a second. So Louis is considerably younger than Thomas.
Not that much.
No, I'm joking. I said that to rile. I said that to rile you.
It's a decade.
Louis, tell me about your journeys in wine and restaurant that got you to where you are now.
Sure. I grew up like an hour outside of Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania. My first job was at a pizza place just because it was either that or some kind of fast food establishment. After that, after high school, I moved to New York with really no direction and no other discernible skills. So I continued.
No college?
No.
Okay.
Just continued working in restaurants and found it kind of more rewarding the more seriously I took it. I managed some places here for a couple years. I moved to San Francisco just to kind of check out the food scene there. I worked for...
What year are we at?
This is
San
2010, 2011.
Okay. Five years ago.
Yeah, there I met a guy named Chris Wright, who was the wine director for a group called Delfina. They have a couple restaurants, and that was the dude that really gave me the kind of turned wine from being like something I was afraid of that I knew I needed to know a little bit about on the side just to work in a restaurant into something that was kind of a...
To round you out a little more?
Yeah, just like what you have to know to not
Right.
look stupid on
But
the
at
floor.
that point, no deep interest or passion to be, you know,
No,
a wine guy.
more fear than anything, for
Okay.
sure. And then his whole demeanor was like so chill, and it made it like just like anything else you'd be into is like any other kind of hobby, and that approach was super refreshing, and that was what kind of gave me the bug to go a little bit deeper into it. So I worked there for a while. I worked abroad for a while. Came back to New York in 2015, and then I've been with these guys for
A couple of years?
just under 2 years now, I guess.
Great.
2 years.
Yeah.
All right,
Wow.
so currently you guys are together. So
Currently.
currently,
For the duration of this interview, yes.
I meant in this room.
Let's see how this
Not
interview
careers
goes.
or anything. All right, so Thomas, let's talk about when and how you came up with Estela. You were starting to get into Ignacio, and I think that starts the answers to the question.
Yeah, this guy, Mark Connell, who owned Bar Botanica, used to come up to Blue Hill. It's like I harvested everything out of Blue Hill.
Now,
No
Bar
pun
Botanica is a
intended.
bar, ironically, underneath the current Estela.
It's not that ironic. I mean, that's how it went down.
Okay.
Like, like Blue Hill was very good. I met Mark up there. I met this gentleman by the name of John Magazzino, who owned an importing company called Paradiso at the time. And he used to import really great pastas and sell them to Franny's. R.I.P.
Right.
Moment of silence for Franny's. At any rate, he introduced me to Ignacio. I was like, I have this space. I need a chef. I'm like, I'm not doing this unless I have somebody really serious. And he's like, what about Ignacio? And Ig and I didn't know each other at all. Like, we are business partners first and friends second. Like, Ig is like a brother to me, but we're still, we started out as business partners. And when we met, we didn't really hit it off. We didn't not hit it off, but...
Different types of guys.
Yeah.
Now, Iggy is from Uruguay?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So we...
She's not from down the block.
Totally. But, we all spoke the same language, which is the restaurant language, which is a great thing about this industry, is it's more similar when you start to work with people from, there's a big, it's very fashionable to do events with chefs from all over the world now and pop-ups, and it's the same shit. It really is. But at any rate, Ig and I, we worked it out, and we opened up Estela, and we had no idea that it would kind of... Estela is like each one of these restaurants is giving birth to something you really have no control over.
Describe the food, because a lot of kudos to the food, very inventive. For people
the
who don't
food
know,
is insane.
how would you describe it?
I don't know.
I think,
it's got
yeah.
Small plates.
No, I don't know. People always say like the plates them physically are small. I would say that they are the exact amount of food that one should be taking in. They're small plates by like
You gotta
traditional
help me
American.
here. You
I
have
know,
to-
but
you
they're
know,
small plates by American standards, but like no, I think it's a perfect.
So
amount
why
of
is
food.
that not small plates or like a tapas type presentation?
It's
You're the
definitely
guy
not
who has to
tapas.
break.
like calling it tapas is like calling La Bernardana a sushi restaurant.
Okay.
You know, it's
seafood
like,
joint.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's you know, the food is Ignacio. Ignacio, I feel like communicates best through food. It's like sometimes I don't know what the fuck he's saying, but when he cooks, I'm like, fuck me.
So it's incredibly. It's all right. It's incredibly inventive.
It's a perspective. You know, it's Ig's perspective.
Now you're getting close.
You know, it's his perspective on life through the scope of food, and there's no real way to pinpoint it unless you experience it. You know, it's like he's like, you know, and the food is brilliant.
So let's talk about the wine. Interesting wine list. Was the wine list designed or influenced, obviously, by the food and the cooking?
Absolutely. Food,
you know, you sit there and go, what goes with this stuff? Because just, Louis, help me here. Describe the wine list, the strengths, you know, the variety, why it goes well with the food.
Sure. I mean, I think the first thing is that it's a pretty, I mean, knowing how good the food is that comes out of the kitchen there, it's a pretty, like, audacious thing to say, oh, we've got this wine list that, you know, in some ways, you know, supports or enhances this really great food that the kitchen puts out. And so, I mean, that's part of it, just, you know, in a matter of taste. We also tried to, I think, to capture a little bit of like the vibe of the place, the energy of the place, and that there's this really great, I mean, yeah, small plates, I guess, but there's also like the way the menu reads and the way the food is presented and plated, there's like a really good balance or tension, I guess, between something very familiar and something very adventurous at the same time.
So how does the wine reflect?
Kind of the same thing. I mean, we're trying to, I mean, we represent a lot of classical European wine regions. We just try and make selections that, you know, still deliver and are still delicious and are still approachable in some way, but that also have an element of, you know, surprise or subversion or just something slightly askew. You know, obviously still making sure that they're well-made wines and that they're, you know, speaking of where they're from, but also kind of feeling the charge to make sure that there's a little bit more intrigue to them.
So when you got there, Thomas, you pretty much put the wine list together, and then was anyone helping you before Louis?
Yeah, I put the wine list together with Matthew Coudry, and I met him at Blue Hill. He was a server, and he's budded into like an amazing somm in all respects. But we came out of a very classical. I came out of a very classical time, and so did Matthew. Matthew was learning from me. So Louis has done a much better job with the wine list now than
I was going to ask, how
did.
have you changed it, evolved it, updated?
I mean, you let him. Yeah, Estela wine list now. You know, it's the best time to drink wine in kind of the history of wine.
Now?
I think so. I mean, depends on what you like, but you know.
But so that's a pretty bold statement. Based on what? There's just a lot of great stuff out there. There's new.
Let me retool that statement. It's the best time to drink wine in America in the history of wine.
Okay.
In America.
As far as what you can get now.
What we can get, and also, you know, you have a lot of different movements in wine as you did in food, and you just like you have this movement in wine. It was like the punk rock movement, which we give this analogy where punk rock was like smaller production in the face of big production,
right?
You know, and you know, in a nutshell, painting a broad stroke. And you're finding the same thing in wine. And what's happening is you are bringing in a whole different demographic because the old guard of wine. I still like. Look, man, if I go to Paris, I'm going to Tour d'Argent and I'm going to drink some old Burgundy that I can't get here or can't afford. So,
but you're also going to go to Septime or Clown Bar or something.
Yeah, totally.
You know,
totally.
You do both.
Yeah, exactly. But what's happening is all those great old wines, unfortunately, get held very tightly by a certain demographic that's very, very protective and elitist.
So you're talking it's accessibility now.
Yeah, and now it's like it's the greatest triumph of the quote natural wine movement. Is that it's bringing a whole new demographic into the fold, and it's super important. You know.
So, what can you do, Louis? What can you do at an Estela that you can't do at other restaurants? I mean, Thomas alluded to the fact that, I guess, millennials, different demos, different people are out there looking at.
Are you a millennial?
I'm not sure.
I don't know what that is. But what can you do at an Estela that you can't do at a Blue Hill?
You didn't tell me that before you came on.
All right, we'll take the fight off the air, but for now.
I think just the pedigree of the restaurant, people are approaching it kind of expecting to be something to be a little bit more adventurous, which I think I'm not sure. I never worked at Blue Hill,
But you would suspect.
I would suspect, but I mean, everything about Estela in particular, like from the moment you arrive, it's above, it's above and adjacent to two dive bars, and you have people that will visit New York and go to, 11 Madison Park per se, and Estela, and it's pretty jarring. You can tell that it's a very different, vibe than they're used to.
And people will sample all those places and leave with the same, feeling.
Hopefully,
because what you present wine-wise, food-wise, is equally the experience of some of the... I remember the year you opened, I went with my wife. You were there. I said, pick something within a price range. Give me something funky and different. And left it to you. And you gave me a bottle of wine, a red from the Canary Islands.
Did I?
Yeah. Now, you wouldn't necessarily get that at...
I thought I gave you the Canon.
No, it was definitely a Canary Island wine.
Nice.
So that's why you can do stuff there. All right, so not to be modest here, or whatever, but Estela's been voted one of the 50 best restaurants in the world. Actually, number 66, but the list is called the best 50. But to be on that list is a high honor, and you guys made that, right?
Yeah.
And there's thousands of restaurants in New York, and I can't let you guys, or I can't, Thomas, let you leave without talking about the fact that President Obama came into the restaurant.
Yeah.
You kind of look back and go, okay, but I mean, there's some pretty damn good restaurants in New York, and a lot of them, and he landed there. If we look back, there's not too many other places. So just because you can, talk to me about that experience a little. Do you have to clear the place out? Pain in the ass? Fun? What?
I don't sweat celebrities too much, but Obama brought me to tears.
He did?
I mean, just the thought of him coming in, I was very, I don't know, it's huge. I mean, I love him.
Right.
No, but he, it was a pretty amazing experience. We were very honored to have him in.
It's a big deal.
It's a huge deal.
And the type of restaurant. I mean, this is not a big, grand parlor. I mean, this is a very dark, cool, neat, tight space.
Yeah, it was really funny when I think it's so far after this, we can talk about it now, but it was funny because when the Secret Service guys got in there and they're looking around, they're like, "This is the place." They were looking in the kitchen, they were looking around, and it was interesting.
My oldest son asked me to ask you this. Do you remember what you served him? What he drank wine-wise?
You know what? He didn't.
It's not a secret, is it?
He didn't drink wine.
Really?
I gave his friends at the table the 2001 Montepulciano. What's that one? The Paradiso or the red label? It comes with a little annoying tag on it. What is that?
Presidium.
Presidium. Yeah. 2001. It's Montepulciano d'Abruzzo, right?
Yeah.
Presidium 01. They drank that, and then he banged out some, I believe, martinis.
Really?
And then he called me over to the table and asked why we didn't have an espresso machine. And he's like, "What? You're too cool for espresso?" I'm like, "No, we just can't execute. The space is too small. We can't execute it."
So he noticed there wasn't one, or it wasn't on the menu, and he kind of busted your chops a little.
Yeah, he's amazing. He makes you feel very comfortable.
Yeah.
I mean, with my 2 seconds.
I think his
FaceTime.
intention was to bust on you, not to make you feel bad.
Of course, yeah. I would.
Did you ever get an espresso machine?
No, we still don't.
There's
there's no space for it. It's too tiny.
All right, so that's a good way to end Estela. Let's move to you have great success critically, recognition-wise at Estela. You open up with Iggy.
Yeah.
Your second place, sort of west, down the street, long walk, but a downtown restaurant. You open Cafe Altro Paradiso. How'd that come about? There was a motivation and an inspiration that said, "Let's do another one."
The space was getting a little small for just Ig and I, and we liked the partnership, so we wanted to expand. The real estate, we like fringe areas. I like that area a lot, actually. And then we were looking at that space, and there was a Uruguayan hero statue in that park. So we're like, well,
that closed. That's karma, right?
And they were like, damn it. And Ig saw the statue. He's like, it's an omen. And I'm like, my people would call it Bashert. And so we took the space, and we were totally unprepared at first to develop a performa for that size of a restaurant. But in hindsight, I wouldn't have changed anything. It took us to school, it taught us a lot. Like opening up, and Ignacio and I both have very similar. We're very different, but our aesthetics are very sparse. We like very simple aesthetics, and we feel like the food needs to speak. So why have any culinary crutches around the restaurant that would detour from the food? Like the wine list, we talked about wine lists before. Wine lists are there to support the food. That's what it is. It's a restaurant.
So, Louis, the wine list, would you say is predominantly or skews more Italian?
Almost 100%.
Okay.
Yeah, almost. A little champagne. But.
Okay. So where Estela is more eclectic, this supports the food because the food there's more Italian offerings. You had trouble describing Estela to me. This is easier to describe.
Yeah, like the food there is very, very high quality, market driven, almost like a California American take on Italian food, non-regionally specific. It's the kind of food that we kind of crave all the time, that you can eat. The idea is to eat it when you can eat there every day and you feel good.
That sounds very tantalizing. That's a heck of a neighborhood restaurant.
The neighborhood is a triumph now.
Yeah.
I mean, sorry, the restaurant.
I meant if you live in the neighborhood to have a place like that.
The restaurant is a success
it's market driven, so everything's seasonal, fresh.
No, it's super fresh, and Ig is really committed to putting that quality on the plate, which is great.
So Louis, you must have strolled down this path. You have to stock up, on Italian, so you put a variety. I'm more curious and interested on your take about. Tell me about some emerging, cool Italian wine regions, winemakers. Besides Barolo, Barbaresco, Chianti, Brunello. I mean,
sure.
Tell me some good stuff to look for.
I think, just generally speaking, Italy is really the one country I think that you can do a list, nearly exclusively with wines from that country, and it makes sense just because from top to bottom, every province is producing. There's 1,000 native grape varieties and really like an infinite kind of array of flavors. That's one part I like about the list at Ultra very much, and kind of coming from the menu too, is that it's just like vaguely Italian. Saying Italian food or saying Italian wine is like saying
with Iggy,
Chinese food. Like it doesn't really apply. It doesn't really mean anything,
Right.
And the menu there is fun because it goes from like you have Mostarda di Cremona from Lombardy, and the next menu item has Calabrian chilies from the south, and it's kind of all over the place. So we take a cue from that with the wine list, and certainly it's a little bit skewed towards Piedmont and Tuscany just because there's so much to delve into.
But get out of that.
But
Give me some interesting wines.
Sicily is having its moment. It's been going on for a while.
Right.
There's great producers. Etna is fascinating just because of the diversity of soil types you have there, it being a big volcano.
Predominant grape is
Nerello. Yeah, you see Nerello Mascalese mostly, and then Nerello Cappuccio, which is its little blending partner. You see Caricante for a white grape, which makes like really like kind of screeching high acid, kind of textural,
good
really
food
interesting
wine.
wines. Great
For
food
sure.
wine.
Yeah. That's a great thing about Italian wines, yeah.
Like full, it's nice too because like it's fuller in style, but still has really good freshness and acidity. So Caricante works for a lot of pairings. Stuff out of the southeast, like the Val d'Anoto, Frappato, Nero d'Avola, Catarato, Grillo, those kind of grapes. So Sicily, that's nothing new. A lot more serious winemaking in places like Campania.
Fiano is.
You see, like those kind of native.
Fiano the grape, Fiano d'Avellino, or
It's very curious variety that shows its face in very it has the maker's hand on it often, but I think it's a very exciting. I don't know, that whole region, like Campania wines in general, like Aglianico, Fiano, like those wines. Especially like when we're eating, like when I like to eat, if I'm gonna have a cocktail, it's not gonna be with food, but with food, Italian wines. Italian wine is, I think, both of our first kind of like our.
You
roots.
have a diversity of regions and types of varietals to match to the food.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
So Campania and Sicily, a lot of stuff in there.
And you see, just broadly, you see more of a movement away from, more extracted, more oaky, more conventional things meant to appeal
a
to
movement away, you said.
Away from that.
Yeah.
I think, it makes sense if you're trying to make a name for yourself on like the international wine stage to produce those kind of wines that are going to draw a little bit more attention from, big publications. But now you're seeing more movement towards just a pretty frank assessment of of what these weird little indigenous grapes can be. So it's definitely an exciting time for that in Italy.
I want to talk about Flora Bar for a minute, but
Sure.
after that, I want to get your take on natural wines too. So finally, Thomas, you open your third restaurant, Flora Bar. This one's out of the neighborhood.
Very much so.
So you open Flora Bar, you open it in the old Whitney, the Met Broyer, and you open it when? Take it from there.
A year ago today.
Okay, Mazel Tov.
Thank you.
All right.
Flora Bar is something we worked on. It kind of came along while we were working on Altro, which in a perfect world, some restaurateurs can handle multiple restaurant openings in very quick succession, which is not our MO. We didn't have that bandwidth to start, It's funny. They were asking us, like, can you guys do this? Do you have the bandwidth? And we're like, yeah, of course we have the bandwidth. Which we did because
Not gonna say no.
Well, of course not.
Yeah.
But, we set up a structure quickly. We over-structured, which is good. And we opened it. And Flora takes its DNA from Estela. It was like, it got its starter from Estela.
The food.
Yeah,
the
it's the
vibe
same.
is-
It's the same DNA in the
I mean, I've
space.
looked at the menu, but the wine list, and we'll get to that in a second, is a little more European, traditional.
Well, exactly. It still takes its cues. Most of our wine list most of the wines are European. The wine list there is the most classical out of all the
Classical
restaurants.
is what I
Right?
meant. Classic
Yeah.
European.
Matthew he's got a brilliant palate. He heads it up. Like right now, like
Is this Matthew who helped you
exactly.
with the Estela?
He's
same
the
guy?
wine director
Okay.
there. I operate as more of like an EIC, right? Where I don't write any stories anymore. I just kind of buzz in and out. And with like both of them, with Lewis and Matthew, like I'm in a position now where I'm more the student. Like I'm learning. Like I was diving so deeply into development of those two places, and now is a fourth place, which we'll talk about at some other date. But that I didn't have time for the wine, and also doing it for a while, it kind of
Is there a wine bar feel to Flora, or is it
Not at
a
all.
restaurant? No.
not at all. I don't know where that came from.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
I
read it
wasn't sure.
in the Times review.
I saw that there too, and I'd been in there, and I didn't get that vibe.
It's the
It's
opposite
a beautiful
of a wine bar.
space. Yeah.
It's like the opposite of a
Yeah.
wine bar. But Flora, the food is seafood based. Once again, it takes its DNA from Estela, of like very, it's got a little bit more of like an Asian veering towards, Central China, a little bit, and Japanese aesthetic of
So
minimalism.
he got to expand even more there,
Yeah, for sure. And
which is
it's-
cool.
The food there is epic.
Yeah.
It's really correct, and it's great wine or great food for wine. Actually, all the restaurants are really exciting to build wine lists around because Estela, Altro the least because it's very like simple food, but Estela and Flora require wine to really have that door open
Complement and make the experience
to support the food
complete.
and open it.
Yeah.
It's almost like a camera without a lens if you don't have a bottle of wine. The lens really completes the picture.
What
Like that one?
That was good.
I guess the wine list potentially has to be dictated by the location. You're dealing with an Upper East Side clientele. I know it's become a destination restaurant,
Yeah.
and people will come from all over, but I'm sure people in the neighborhood have embraced it. You feel and sense that different uptown vibe?
Yeah, I actually really appreciate it up there.
Yeah.
It's no bullshit. There are a couple things that you have to deliver. You can never be late on the table. You can never have bad service. You can't have bad food.
So I don't know how to ask this. Things are either scrutinized more or it's more relaxed downtown. Everybody wants good food, good service, good wine.
I think it's easier uptown.
Yeah.
Well, people don't want to be messed around. Like it's a little bit more. It's a little bit of an older demographic up there,
Right.
But they don't want to be. They don't want their hands held. They've seen it. They've done it. They're
Right.
well traveled. It's like they're all areas are great. I mean, that's the amazing thing about Manhattan. It's like we'd never do something above whatever street, but I really love it up there. It's like this. It's really that building. I mean, that Breuer, that
Great.
Breuer. No, that
Breuer, that's some building.
No, I've been going to the Marcel Breuer building for years, and it's
Well, you were an art student.
Yeah.
I hope so.
and just if you like every time I walk down the internal steps or look at a little detail on the steps or what you marvel at it. It's an amazing building, and it's
plus the restaurant, the light, the windows,
the
foliage
lighting.
behind it's a very interesting space.
These original Edison bulbs that were built from Marcel and all the original detailing. It's
crazy.
It's pretty insane.
So that's Thomas's newest restaurant. That's Flora Bar on the Upper West Side. Interesting menu, interesting wine list. We're going to take a break in a couple of minutes. But before we do that, I just wanted to get your take. And Louis, I'll start with you on natural wines. Is it a real movement? Is it important to participate in it in restaurants? There's going to be a raw wine fair here in Brooklyn in November. It was very successful last year. It's bigger this year.
LA this year too.
Yeah, they're going the week later. Tell me your take on that.
I approach it from two angles. Like personally, I think that they're much more interesting. That's kind of my deal.
Right.
From the position of buying wine for a restaurant, I think it's important to kind of set any kind of dogma aside and really just look at what works with the food, what works with the space. What kind of list you can write to provide the kind of experience that the people coming in
I think
want.
Flora and Estela would be two different, order lists.
Yeah.
Right.
That being said, the reason that I think people freak out about natural wine is that when they're well made and there's a skilled winemaker and they're stored properly, and like when they're good, they're really good, and they can provide a certain kind of flavor experience that you just don't get from conventionally made wines. Right. The trade-off is they're much more unstable and volatile, for I guess lack of a better word.
Some inconsistency.
And
but that could be true with anything. There's crappy traditional wines.
Absolutely.
So I think they get a little more heat for that, but it's a fair knock. What do you think?
I think it's a very important. I'm just echoing what Louis said. I think it's a very important platform. My first experiences with it. Some of these take sugaring wines for a more lengthy primary fermentation and Burgundy, but some of these guys are pretty damn close. But who knows what's going on with their neighbor? So doing it there,
right?
Or if you look at Robert Michel or Alamand, like some of these guys that I've been drinking for a while. I brought it up to Blue Hill in 2009 when I heard about Frank, what's his name from
Cornelison?
Yeah, from Etna, and I heard about it from somebody that was out there, and then I had to go through some Russian guy that was out of Las Vegas to get his wines. But they were really cool. He gave me Magma and then Contadino. Is that the other one?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, which I poured him by the glass up there for years, and I really liked him. And
you were able to sort of pick out and present to that, market.
Like I was saying before, it's like punk music. It's like punk rock. I think it's a very important just to what it's done philosophically, and for the wine world to get out of the hands of a few people that really hold it so closely and dearly, and to open it up and bring other people into the fold. I think it's really great.
I think that's a good take on it. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to subject Thomas and Louis to our wine list and see what they're drinking and maybe get some good recommendations. You're listening to The Grape Nation on Heritage Radio Network. We'll be right back.
Hearst Ranch is a proud sponsor of the Heritage Radio Network. The Hearst family has been raising cattle on the rich, sustainable native grasslands of California's Central Coast for over 150 years. Piedra Blanca Rancho in San Simeon is the original Hearst Ranch, founded by George Hearst in 1865. George's son was the famous publisher William Randolph Hearst. In addition to being known for building the iconic Hearst Castle, William was, like his father before him, an avid rancher. In his words, "I would rather spend a month at the ranch than any place in the world." Thanks to one of the largest land conservation easements in California history, a joint effort with the California Rangeland Trust, the American Land Conservancy, and the state of California, the working landscape at Hearst Ranch will be preserved forever. Learn more about Hearst Ranch at HearstRanch.com.
we're back. We're back with my guests, Louis Fabbrini and Thomas Carter from Estela, Cafe Altro Paradiso, and Flora Bar. I'm sorry we got into it before. I didn't promo the guys enough. All right, so I want to subject Louis and Thomas to our wine list. And guys, I'm going to ask you about 5 questions. Buzz through them. This is spontaneous, so tell me what's on your mind. We'll go Louis first, then Thomas second. So, Louis, what are you drinking now? What are you tasting? What's, on the bar? What's in the house? What are you tasting through right now?
I think we've been kind of delving a little bit more into like Eastern European stuff at Estela. There's a lot of, really like good bang for your buck type things from
like Stavik, guys like that.
Stavik, yeah, like the other guy
producer.
He's in Moravia with Milan Nesterets is pretty cool.
Okay. Spell that for me, can you?
Oh man, Nesterec.
Okay, because I want to post that.
He does like a pretty like tongue-in-cheek line of super macerated white wines, but then some entry-level stuff that is cheap and cheerful and really delicious. And Spain too. I think it's probably the ideal time now to be drinking more natural-leaning Spanish wine. In New York, there's some really cool stuff coming in that again is.
Give me one reco.
There's a producer called Alba. They're in Sanlúcar, so in sherry country, and they do unfortified still and sparkling wines from Palomino Fino. I don't think they own any grapes. I think they buy everything, but really compelling stuff, really food-friendly stuff. It's also kind of fun to see such a maligned grape that, it's notable for not really having any character of its own, be very expressive of where it's from. So they're probably
Sounds
that's what
good.
I'm drinking.
Thomas, what are you drinking now? What have you been tasting? Not a month ago, not, what you're going to order next week. What?
1990 Lagrange. That was actually really good.
Okay.
That's what we had last night. I can't lie. It was really delicious. Some Old Bordeaux. I'm a sucker, I have to say.
Okay.
No, I think that the one item, and the name escapes me, was the champagne that you turned me on to. Kind of blows my hair back. From
That
04.
is Frank Pascal.
Yeah.
Pascal.
Yes.
Frank
Really?
Pascal.
The
from
fruit comes from-
Champagne.
Yeah, champagne. He's
Cote d'Ivoire? No, where is he?
No,
Okay.
Marne Valley.
Marne.
So sparkling wine, a little Bordeaux. Sounds good.
I love Pigatos because they're like Fiano. They show, depending on how the maker kind of cultivates them, they have a very wide range of their flavor profiles, and they're I like easy wines nowadays.
Okay. Those are good ones.
Yeah.
Louis, favorite wine and food pairing?
Favorite wine and food pairing.
Lewis's. You don't have it all the time, but when you can or when you do, it's like, oh yeah, this is it.
Just because it's two things that I don't like that together makes me like
Chop
them.
liver and Manischewitz.
No,
Go
it's,
ahead.
yeah. I really like to have sea urchin, to have uni with like an off-dry Riesling. Two things that separately I think are kind of gross, but together I think make it
I
really
think you're
nice.
wrong. I think uni is spectacular, and Riesling is like the Somme wine.
Yeah, I don't feel that
that's
way.
a take on oysters and Chablis. So that's a cool answer. What about you? I don't know if you can top that.
Well,
Pressure's on. I see you squirming a little.
I have to say that there's a lot. I recall a lot of great pairings, but this one that stuck out when I went back home for Thanksgiving years ago to Chicago. We had like a very, and once again it comes from one thing that I typically just despise, which is American wine, and it was.
In general?
No, there's some good wines.
Okay.
But this is like a Ridge Montebello, and I have a lot of respect for him, but it's nothing.
Paul Draper.
Yeah, exactly.
Not your type of wine.
It's just not my thing. And I just never had any use
What about
for
his Zins? Those are two?
whatever. So this
Okay,
was
go
like
ahead, continue.
it was like the LBV 1978, and we took a bottle of that to a place called Lem's Ribs, which is in the south side of Chicago, and you get your ribs through a bulletproof rotating. And I have to say, those two things together were it was.
So it was Lem's Ribs and
like I think it was 1978 late bottle vintage Montebello or something like that. And it was
that of all the California wines, that's one of the few that could probably hold up from that vintage.
it was really interesting. But
All right, next question. Outside of your places, which have been answers from other people on the show, favorite wine restaurant and or bar. I'm looking for places that you go to, you've been to, where the selection, the service, the knowledge towards wine and the food are top notch. Give me a place or two.
There's a place here in Brooklyn called Have and Meyer on Havemeyer Street.
Okay.
I think Havemeyer and Hope.
First time anyone's ever said that.
Yeah, I don't really. I wish I knew more about the people behind it, but they have like I don't know how they do it, but they have a stupid amount of really delicious natural Italian wines open by the glass on
Really?
the menu. Like
Great
more
reco.
like more than 20 or 30, and it's like mostly like macerated stuff from
Great record.
all over.
Have and Meyer. On
yeah.
Havemeyer.
Yeah, the name is
Got it. Thomas?
Le Baratin in Paris.
Okay. Spell?
Baritan.
Le Baratin. And is that a restaurant or more of a wine bar?
No, it's
type
a
of-
restaurant.
It's a restaurant.
I-
Just great wine service, selection, food.
Wine bars typically aren't my thing because unless I have food with it, it's just like I don't know. I need food.
Okay.
So this place is she's from Argentina, the chef, and
Is
actually
that-
the wine service is really bad unless somebody's nice to you, and then it's great. But
Right.
but the food, it's the food and the wine and the vibe and everything clicks. It's one of those places. It's their Estela. And
Right.
everything clicks. You
Right.
know,
They just got it going.
yeah, it's amazing.
All right. Lewis, favorite all-time wine? If not one or two?
1978 Bruno Giacosa Santo Stefano Barbaresco.
Is that a red label?
Yeah,
That's a red label.
Okay.
That was my favorite wine. I was working in Hong Kong at the time, and I remember it was easily the nicest bottle of wine I'd ever opened. It was just some fabulously wealthy Indonesian people, I think, and it was cool because it was the best thing I'd ever tasted, food or wine, period. And then watching these guys like kind of shrug it off like, whatever, and then just like suck it down like it was any other plonk was instructive.
That's a good one. I think
for
that
my
wine was
career.
around before you.
It
correct?
was,
Okay.
yeah, but that's the one.
You have one, Thomas?
yeah.
This could be a Bordeaux.
No, 1968 Master Berardino Terrassi.
Ah. Tell people what Terrassi is.
Terrassi is a region in Campania and Alianico, and I like it for the wine is almost superfluous to the backstory of this wine. This is a time where you come from a very affluent region, and in the 60s you don't have it's not a very big tourist region like it is now. Is that area Campania? It's like it's got a fair amount of tourism.
Yeah,
you have
Campania's coming
Yeah.
around, and Terrassi is,
So they
it's
don't-
not
it's-
crazy, but there's more awareness.
They don't have an enologist. They're not dealing with UC Davis. They don't have
That's a good one, Master Berardino Terrassi. All right, I think both of you are qualified to answer this. This is good info for my listeners, especially my kids, because they're in their 20s. They're starting to make some money. They drink wine. They're going to dinner parties. They don't want to bring crappy wine, but they don't want to spend a lot of money. So I want each of you to give me best wine around $15, up a little. Give me a red and a white. You could be specific. You could be regional. Like you could say Muscadet, or you can give me, So Lewis, give me a 15+ wine that shows better than its price. Red and a white.
I think around like $15-$20. I think that like Alto Piemonte is always overlooked. So
Not the
Nebbiolo,
first guy who's brought that up here.
It's their baby Barolo or Barbarescos, but you get to see Nebbiolo.
It's a Nebbiolo, right.
Nebbiolo-based wines with some other like local blending partners, but they drink well young. They're usually not crazy expensive. Like
So that's a
Costa del
great
Sassi
red.
or-
Give me a white.
White. I'd probably go back to some Czech Republic stuff.
Really?
You see like some really delicious.
What are some of the grapes that we'd be drinking?
You see Gruner, Veltliner.
Okay.
You'll sometimes see like Müller-Thurgau.
And the pricing will be in the 15, 20. We're talking that?
and with like substantially more bang for your buck, just because people aren't flocking to Czech wines.
All right.
necessarily.
Good call on that. Thomas?
mine are a little bit more on the beaten path. For red, I like to frequent southwest France, southeast too. Syrah, usually. Grenache is never something. Usually, when you're dealing with these price points, you're talking about a wine in its youth. I'd usually veer away from Grenache in its youth. Although you gave me the Padier, which was Grenache was actually
So
very
you're
good.
saying you like Grenache, but you don't like drinking young Grenaches.
Yeah,
so you want some bottle age from a good maker.
Yeah,
type
but
thing.
Syrah I think is a really beautiful variety in its youth and into its.
Well, when you say Southwest, you're not talking Northern Rhone.
No, I mean
Like, give me a producer, if any come to mind.
Well, you would have more of a mix. Like, I like, like Chemi Riviera brings in a lot of these fun wines from that region that you can get very affordable. Like,
Who was that? The distributor?
Yeah.
Importer? Spell it for me.
I don't even know how to spell her name. I have no idea.
It's,
Give me the last name.
Riviere.
Rivie.
All right, I'll look it up.
with an accent.
All right,
somewhere.
give me a white.
White, I think you can do well, because white wine I don't like. I don't like botrytis in white wine. Very rarely. I like very steely, very acid forward, and I like the Jura for. You can get good bang for the buck still in the Jura.
The Jura is great, definitely
Yeah.
for that price. All right, so we're gonna post those answers. We'll post them on Instagram at some point, and they'll go on the Grape Nation Facebook page. That's at the Grape Nation on Facebook. All right, good choices, guys. Thank you for that. We're gonna finish the show up with our last segment, which is the weekly wine sip. Every week we taste a different wine on air. For our weekly wine sip this week, we're gonna taste a 2012 Francois Cheddain Vouvray Les Argy. Not good at French. It's a Chenin Blanc, a white wine from the Loire in France. Cheddain is known for growing biodynamically and organic. This wine in current vintages retails for about $20-25, and it's available at better wine shops. Anything else we need to know about this guy or the region? Lewis, can you add anything? Not the wine yet, just because we're going to taste it on.
I mean, the region is it's tough to get a beat on Vouvray, just because of the variety of styles it can be made in. It can be bone dry and pretty aromatic. It
right,
can have.
this is a sec.
Yeah, this guy has some sugar, but it's interesting. It's a word that people know, and then a wine that people really know nothing about. So it's kind of a fun appellation to dig into.
And is Cheddain regarded enough in that region?
It's a big wine,
Yeah,
huh?
sure. I mean,
All right, so let's taste it now. All right, let's look at the color first. Guys, you have? Okay. So it's sort of a pale golden, not light, not deep. We agree on that?
Mm-hmm.
Lewis, pour yourself some more if you need more, and give Thomas some more. So it's sort of a pale yellow. Let's go nose on this, guys. I get
It's
a little.
good.
I get a little fruit.
It's very generous.
Yeah, it's
Stone fruit,
I was,
like ripe stone fruit.
yeah. When you
stone.
said it's generous, I picked up on that too.
Yeah, it's like
there.
it's a big wine, but it's balanced. It's got good acidity.
All right, so let's go mouthfeel. Let's
Whenever
throw.
I think of this region, I also think of 7 Year. Because 7 Year is like it's more austere, bigger brother, and Vouvray
Right.
is more of this generous, open kind of counterpoint to it, but also very ageable.
All right,
and
so
fun.
mouthfeel, Lewis.
the feel is good. The texture is good. You feel
Medium plus, right?
I'd say medium plus.
Pretty
It has
mouth
some-
filling.
It has some weight. You kind of feel the sugar a little bit. Kind of has almost like a oily texture to it, which
Yeah,
is nice.
it's a little
Yeah.
unctuous.
Yeah, it's pretty creamy. It's pretty plush.
Did an interesting job with like playing with the leaves and then to its acid component.
Yeah, it has good. I mean, the
balanced.
length is good for how kind of fleshed out it is. I
Yeah.
think.
The length on the palate.
Yeah, the acidity is still there. I mean,
it
it's-
coats and stays a little.
Yeah.
All right, let's go palate. What are we tasting on this wine?
Pretty much in line with the nose.
it's
Same,
pretty
same
consistent.
kind of
Yeah.
fruit quality.
Good length.
Good acidity.
I think the acidity is. I mean, the alcohol is high, but the acidity is high too. What's the alcohol in that? It's like 13%. I don't know.
Is it too high for you, or it's just detectable
No, I
to
think
you?
it's no.
It's
I
okay.
Think I think it's fine. I think it's just because like this wine for me is screaming for like some kind of salad
So this is
with fruit.
this is $19-23. Good value for a bottle like this.
$23 in a store.
Yeah,
So that means
yeah.
it's
No, forget restaurant. I'm talking.
the
And
store?
when I asked you for the $15 wines, I meant retail.
I like the wine a lot, but it's like knowing this. If I saw this on the shelf next to something else, I'd probably go for the other thing.
for less money or
for
same?
less money.
Okay.
Like if this was like it was on the shelf for like $12 or $13,
It's not. So
it's definitely not.
To
No,
your
but
point,
it's very.
you'll find wines that'll drink to your taste.
But I know a lot of people that will drink that's very happily for that. It's a very affordable price point for such a well put together wine.
What would we pair this with, Louis?
Cheese.
Anything really.
Did you say cheese?
I said cheese, but yeah, if you want, if cheese is the answer you want,
You could definitely go cheese.
No, give me a pairing for this.
I like this kind of stuff where the acidity to me is the thing about this wine that is the standout. So raw fish, something kind of some kind of crudo dish, maybe something with a little bit of spice too. I think that Chenin can play nicely with some heat. Yeah, I mean it's got enough weight it could stand up. I think a little bit later into your dinner with some more substantial stuff. But I would drink this with some raw seafood.
Okay. So before we wrap up, just answer this question for me, for my listeners. So this is a Chenin Blanc. That's the grape. The bottle is marked as Vouvray. I don't even know if the word Chenin Blanc are on the bottle. What's the distinction or difference between Vouvray and Chenin Blanc? Nothing.
Well, Vouvray is the region. Chenin Blanc is the variety.
The grape.
Of course.
Right.
And I believe that anytime you put Vouvray or use that designation, it's the white variety that reigns supreme in that region.
Right.
It has to be Chenin Blanc.
Because there's a lot of Chenin Blanc. So when you go and buy Vouvray, it's a Chenin Blanc from the Vouvray region, which is what I was trying to get to. All right, so go around the table. Like this wine, love this wine, okay. What do you think?
I think objectively, it's a very good wine. It's
Okay.
it's put together very
So
well.
you like it?
Yeah. Objectively, I like it. Subjectively,
Well, you stated that. You don't love it. Louis, same feelings, a little different?
I feel the same.
Okay.
It's
Mike, do you like this wine?
Yeah, I like it.
David? Okay. So
do you
it's
like
good
it?
enough.
I think
I'm
it's
not
very,
a big Vouvray guy. I was just at
I
a
like it.
tasting, and I almost
Just-
got thrown out because I was just railing on it. And I love Chenin, but it just wasn't. It didn't do it for me. This wine I like. I agree with you. It's a good food wine. It's tasting well, but I think there's other wines, value-wise.
Yeah, like
that-
wines are like people. Like, do I want to hang out with this person for how
Right.
long?
That's exactly.
Like, we'll have
it.
a quick conversation, but like, I'm out. Like, I've had enough of this person.
That's it. All right, guys, we got to wrap up the show. If you have a question, wine happening, or event, hit me up at sam@thegrapenation.com. That's sam@thegrapenation.com. Follow us on Facebook at The Grape Nation. I'll post Thomas and Lewis's wine list answers, and I'll also post the wine that we tasted. Please follow us on Instagram at @SBenRuby, hashtag Grape Nation, The Grape Nation, Twitter at BenRuby, and Thomas and Lewis. I don't know if I didn't dig deep enough, but you guys seem fairly inept on social media. I couldn't find an Instagram account or something.
Well, I'm going to give you Lewis's Instagram account. Right
And I
now.
don't want so.
this is my worst fear coming true.
No. I'm not going to press you. So, Thomas, the restaurants
The restaurants
are at Estela, New York City,
Yeah.
Altro Paradiso,
Yeah. Correct.
and at Flora Bar,
Yeah.
New York City.
Flora Bar NYC, is it? I don't even remember.
So these are terrific restaurants. That's why I asked these guys on. You could either Google them and you'll get to their web pages, or you could follow them on social media. Guys, I want to thank you for coming on. Thank you to Thomas Carter. Thank you to Louis Fabbrini. Thank you to our engineer, Vitor, as always, and everyone at the Heritage Radio Network. We don't want to leave without saying that our hearts and thoughts go out with everybody out in Napa and Sonoma. We hope that everyone is safe. Don't take your eye off of those wines. They live off of tourism and sales. So, stay with those guys. Some
Mexico
of those
and
guys
Puerto
are
Rico
from,
as well.
Yeah, true. But this is the current thing. But fair, okay? I'm Sam BenRuby, and you've been listening to The Grape Nation.
Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. For our freshest content and to hear about exclusive events, subscribe to our newsletter. Enter your email at the bottom of our website, heritageradionetwork.org. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at heritage_radio. Heritage Radio Network is a nonprofit organization driving conversations to make the world a better, fairer, more delicious place. And we couldn't do it without support from listeners like you. Want to be a part of the food world's most innovative community? Rate the shows you like, tell your friends, and please join our community by becoming a member. Just click on the beating heart at the top right of our homepage. Thanks for listening.